Welcome to my studio on a rather dark and dismal winter's day. You can see out of the window behind me that it's getting dark and it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I love using gold in my artwork. I hope if I wiggle that around there is enough light in here just to catch it. Or maybe this one. But about 3 years ago, I decided to try and compare every single gold paint I could lay my hands on and see whether anything lived up to my beloved gold leaf. Now, that video, which is still up on YouTube, has amassed almost, I think, 90,000 views, which is crazy. But since then, I've got some new paints, I've got some new inks, I've got some new acrylics, and I want to try those out to see how they compare and try and rank them. Because the thing is, gold leaf is gorgeous and is my favourite always. But sometimes you might want to write with it and it might be easier to write with an ink. Sometimes you might need to paint a tiny miniature and you're not going to gold leaf it, but you might just want to put a little gold highlight. Is there something that will do that for you? So we'll rank the paints, but we'll also think about what the pros and cons of each one is. My name's Liz Chadderton. I'm a watercolour artist based in Berkshire. Every week I share tips and tricks I wish I'd known about ages ago. I love to experiment and I adore to use gold leaf. So enough talking, let's get going. Before we start swatching these out, I have to do a disclaimer. If you Google gold paints, in the world, there must be thousands of them. I have a fairly good collection, but I cannot test every single one. When I did this before, a couple of years ago, people would say, oh, did you try so-and-so? Or why didn't you try so-and-so? Because I can't try everything, but I will try as much as possible. I'm trying to be scientific, so I have little pieces of watercolour paper. I have labelled them all on the back so I don't forget. And we should crack on. This is literally my gold standard. This is imitation gold leaf on that watercolour paper. The one I am really excited to try out is liquid leaf. It was one of the ones that people said, oh, didn't you try so-and-so? So I have bought some. I have never used this and I am excited. So in the pot, it does just look like molten gold. Let me give it a sniff. Oh, that's got a lot of solvent in. So if you don't like the smell of solvent, this is not for you. Wow, that is really gorgeous. Really shiny. Just on first look, we'll let it dry obviously. That's super. Brushes do need to be cleaned with the solvent and it dries in 20 minutes. The paint that started my quest for a good gold paint actually was because I got this little pot from Stuart Semple and he described it as the Goldest gold. I thought that was a pretty bold claim. He has just brought out a new gold and it's in its beta testing. And it is called Mirror Gold. So I'm excited to put those side by side. Just in the pot, you can see this looks quite greenish. I think it needs a good mix. And this is a far warmer gold. So because I'm excited, let's try the Mirror Gold next. I have to give that a jolly good stir. Giving it a sniff, it's got a real pear drop smell to it, which I guess is acetone. And I say, got quite a greeny tinge. Let's see what it's like on paper. Interesting how it's settling into the paper. When it goes on fresh, it does look reflective. Just flip that over. I was just wondering if there's solvents in there that are soaking through. It's not going through the watercolour paper. It's actually drying silver rather than gold. Wasn't expecting that. Let's try that Goldest gold. So it's definitely dried up because I haven't used it. But let's give it a good mix. It's a very rich gold colour, not as reflective Has a gold leaf, but not unpleasant at all. This is certainly one I hadn't tried before in that previous film. It is from Viviva. I don't know if you've ever come across Viviva colour sheets. So they are super portable watercolours that come in little books like this. This is a metallic set, and I have taken this gold with me as I travel. So we went to Mexico, and I was pretty sure there would be some good gold things in Mexico. And oh, where did we go? We went to Costa Rica, and there is a gold museum in the capital of Costa Rica. So I used that there, and it was lovely for adding a little shimmery highlight. I'll come back to it once it's dry, but a lovely warm gold with a little bit of a shimmer, but that is a watercolour product. While we're on watercolours, let's look at aqua bronze. Now, I unfortunately broke the lid of this pot, so I had to decant it into here. Aqua bronze is from Schminke. I am going to be covered, aren't I? And it is a powder. Let's open it up. Gold powder. Some out there. And it has a binder in it, so you can mix it with water to make a paint. And I love this stuff because you can also just sprinkle it onto wet paper and it adds this amazing shimmer. And I think it's a really versatile product that just gives a beautiful shimmer. I am primarily a watercolorist or use watercolor and ink, so I'm a water-based type artist. So this satisfies me rather than involving anything that's got a lot of solvents in it. While we're on water-based ones, I've got this. This is a Japanese watercolor in gold, sort of a kuretake gold. Just worked the water into that surface. It's quite a grey sort of gold. But let's get a swatch down there and see what that's like when it's dry. Now, you may never have come across this either, and it's a gold iridescent watercolour medium. So you can add it to any of your watercolours and it adds a gold shimmer to them. So it is not going to be opaque and heavy. There's no way it's going to cover the paper like that. It is meant to be a transparent gold shimmer. But this is on its own. Now I've got a couple of drawing inks. This one, goodness knows where I got it from. It says Brian Clegg, and I don't even know what that brand is. And this poor sad bottle in Winsor and Newton. Now I put some mixing beads in those there. If you can just hear that click, those are little stainless steel ball bearings, because this separates out incredibly quickly. And what I remember, it had a lovely shimmer to it. So this is an ink, a drawing ink. You wouldn't be able to put it in a fountain pen because all those tiny little bits of gold will block the feed mechanism, but you could use it with a dip pen, brush it on, and that is Winsor and Newton. And you can see it's quite a thin ink. Interesting when this is dried. Maybe I think this definitely needs a second layer. We can compare it to that Winsor and Newton. I've got a couple of acrylics that might be worth a look at. This is a very old tube of Cryla pale gold acrylic. That's very yellow, isn't it? And then this is Meeden, which, if you've not heard of Meeden, they are a Chinese company. spread that out and see what we think to it. You say that verges on copper rather than gold, but no, let's see what we think. This is Liquitex, one of their ink, iridescent bright gold. Again, I would imagine that needs a jolly good shake. So this is an ink, so it's a lot thinner, and we'll get a couple of layers on there to give it its best shot. Hard to smooth out, isn't it? The final one I'm going to try out is this bottle, and goodness knows where I found it, Specialist Crafts Limited. It's called Liquid Metal, which I think is quite a bold claim, but in the bottle it looks pretty good. What does it look like on the paper? I would say that needs another coat as well to give it true colour. It says it's non-toxic and you can dilute it with water. I think we've tried everything I'm planning to try, so I'm going to let them all dry and come on back. Well, that is a lot of gold samples. Say these are all one layer each. Just looking at them as we are there, see that colour variation from this really orangey, coppery colour through to very yellow and sort of greeny looking ones. And while they are drying, I am going to really investigate this gold mirror because it's gone utterly silver. As promised, while that was drying, I looked up this mirror, this gold mirror, and it says it's been 2 years in the making, and the best thing to do is apply it in two or three thin layers rather than one thick one to try and get that mirror effect. I've deliberately left layer 1 showing just so that we can see how it builds up. Now that was the liquid leaf, which I was really impressed with. I don't honestly think it needs a second layer, but to be fair, let's give it one. So in terms of that gold mirror and this one are the solvent-based paints. I don't tend to use solvent-based things because I don't like the smells, but I may have to go against that because I think, I say as a finish, that's absolutely beautiful. So if we've just done the solvent-based ones, let's try the watercolour ones. So we've got the Kuretake, the Jackman's Iridescent Medium, that was, oh yes, the Viviva watercolour, the Aqua Bronze, and that was the Liquid Metal, which I'll include in here just because it was clean up with water. So out of those, sorry, I keep checking, the Viviva one is looking pretty good. Let's give it a second coat just to be fair. These colour sheets aren't designed for large paintings. They really are sort of on the go. So if you fall in love with this, that might not be the best thing. That was the Kuretake one, which is a very brown, pretty opaque. We'll mix up a bit more Aqua Bronze. So it is water soluble. You don't waste any of the powder, which as it's pretty expensive, you don't want to be wasting, do you? Put a drop of that iridescent medium on there here. So it's kind of not fair. It isn't. It is a medium rather than a paint. It's designed to go in with other paints. But I just wanted to show you what you could add to add a bit of glitter if you were wanting sort of pure watercolour. That liquid metal looks gorgeous on the brush, doesn't it? Rather hard to get rid of the stripes. We'll move on to the 3 acrylics we tried out. Of course, acrylics can be cleaned up with water while they're wet, but once they are dry, they are waterproof. Those watercolours that we've just tried out, they are all water soluble, or water can be reactivated. So that's something to think about if you're trying to find the best gold for your project. Now I was pretty heavy-handed with this Goldest gold. You can hardly see the texture of the paper through it, So let's just be a little lighter on this one. And of course, acrylics dry very fast. And brushes are easy to clean up, and there isn't any hefty solvent smell. And now let's try the three inks. That was our Winsor and Newton, and already it's separating out, so it needs a jolly good shake again. So drawing inks, again, are water soluble when wet, so you can just clean your brushes off with water, and most are waterproof, or certainly water resistant when dry. We'll need to be careful with the colour fastness. I think these are all pretty colour fast. A lot of drawing inks fade in UV light. It's just the nature of ink. I don't think you will find that with metallics, but it's always worth checking because you don't want any surprises. Now this is looking very thin, so I wonder if I need to give that a far better stir. It's almost jellyish in the pot, so I wonder if I've just had it too long. It's still very transparent, but equally well, sometimes maybe you want a transparent gold shimmer rather than an absolute gold colour. Right, time for the ranking. Just to remind you, that is my imitation gold leaf. This is my liquid leaf. That is such a lovely surprise. So it is solvent based. You do need to clean your brushes with solvent, and look, it has sort of soaked through, the solvent has soaked through the paper. The shine is fantastic. That was 2 coats, and if you remember, just after 1 coat it was brilliant. That for me is a standout of today. This had 3 coats in the end. That was the gold mirror, and it pains me to say this because I love Stuart Semple's products, and they are so innovative, and the packaging is so lovely, and the whole ethos of the company is brilliant, but I'm not really loving that. It's got a very brassy green look to it, and I much prefer that warm gold look. Now, in terms of shine, let's give them a wiggle in the light. I would have said the Goldest gold has probably the most shine on, though that Cryla's not bad. This Meeden one is, I don't particularly like the colour, and yes, it's got a bit of shine, but I don't particularly like that. In terms of the colour and the warmth of the gold, I probably like that Goldest gold, which was again from Stuart Semple. But that's not too bad either. That was the Cryla. Guess it just depends what colour gold you want, but they've got a bit of shine on them. So if I was ranking them, that would be first, second, third. That was the Winsor and Newton drawing ink, and I would say I really like the colour. That's 2 coats. It's got a good shimmer on it. I like the colour. If you wanted a rich gold, that's not bad. That was the Liquitex one, and that's got pretty good coverage. That was a real disappointment, but I wonder, as I say, whether that jar has gone off a bit. So my ranking would go Winsor and Newton, Liquitex, Brian Clegg. I'm not expecting these to be as gold as the acrylics, because the acrylics are more opaque, they're just thicker bodied, but they've done remarkably well. In terms of just gold shimmer, that, just double checking, is the Viviva one out of my little colour sheets, and it's really, yeah, that could hold its own up actually. I'm impressed with that. That is the aqua bronze, and interestingly, looking at it with the rest, it's got a bit of a greeny tinge to it. I like that if it's slightly warmer maybe. That was the liquid metal, do you remember that one? Which looks to me very sort of craft paint, something that you give to kids. So it's fine. The Kuretake Japanese watercolour, is a little bit grey for my liking. And then that was 2 layers of the medium, the iridescent medium from Jackman's. Given that it is not a pigment, it is just a medium, that's got a pretty good glitter to it. So if you just need a shimmer, I reckon that's a good one to look at. So for me, out of these water-based ones, say I rather like that Viviva one, just wish it was available in larger quantities. The clear winner for me today is that liquid leaf from Roberson. So let's sum that up. Very little beats gold leaf, and it is easier than you think, but it is a 2-part process. You have to put on the glue first and then the leaf. So if you're only doing a tiny area, you know, it might put you off. The texture, if it's really recessed, can be tricky with gold leaf, and it does get everywhere, and it does need sealing to keep that beautiful luster. With paint, you need to think whether you want it solvent, acrylic or watercolor based, and whether you need it transparent just to give that little glimmer of glitter, or whether you want it opaque. We've seen such a huge variation of colour, so again, finding the one that's absolutely right for you may take some experimentation. The cleanup can be tricky, particularly with those solvent ones, but great for fine detail, and potentially doesn't need any sort of varnishing, which could be good. So the standout for me, as I said, was my liquid leaf. But other ones that came high and I thought, they're doing what I want them to do. Well, that was that Winsor and Newton drawing ink, the aqua bronze, that was the Viviva watercolour one. So I hope that's given you some more thoughts and ideas, and you can invite a little bit of glimmer into your artwork.